Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Ne Zha 2 is a landmark 2025 Chinese animated fantasy action film, directed and written by Jiaozi, also known as Yu Yang, and produced by a collaboration of major Chinese studios, including Chengdu Coco Cartoon, Beijing Enlight Media, and Beijing Enlight Pictures. The film is a direct sequel to the 2019 hit Ne Zha, and it draws heavily from classical Chinese mythology, particularly the 16th-century novel Investiture of the Gods, Fengshen Yanni, which chronicles the lives of divine and mortal heroes embroiled in cosmic battles. With a production budget of approximately $80 million, the film represents one of the largest and most ambitious animated projects in Chinese cinema, combining cutting-edge 3D animation with traditional artistic aesthetics, deep mythological storytelling, and a globally appealing narrative. Upon its release, Ne Zha 2 shattered numerous box office records, grossing over $2.2 billion worldwide and becoming the highest-grossing animated film in history, the highest-grossing non-English language film, and one of the highest-grossing films ever. This success highlighted the global potential of Chinese animation and demonstrated that mythologically rooted, culturally rich storytelling could resonate with audiences around the world. The narrative of Ne Zha 2 picks up immediately after the first film, following Ne Zha and his friend Ao Bing, who survive a catastrophic divine lightning strike that destroyed their physical bodies. Their spirits remain intact but unstable, existing in a fragile, liminal state. To restore them, their master Tai Zhenren initiates a ritual using the seven-colored sacred lotus, a powerful magical artifact capable of regenerating their bodies. However, the process is interrupted when the hometown of Chintang Pass is attacked by forces led by the Dragon King Ao Guang, Ao Bing's father, alongside other dragon rulers. The conflict is complicated by interventions from the celestial sect, creating confusion and testing the hero's resolve. As a result of these chaotic events, Ao Bing's body fails to fully materialize, and both he and Ne Zha are forced to share a single body temporarily. This unusual circumstance drives the emotional core of the story, as both characters must navigate shared existence, personal limitations, and the burden of responsibility while maintaining their bond and identity. The challenges Ne Zha and Ao Bing face extend beyond physical survival. The Celestial Sect, led by Wu Yang, manipulates events to consolidate power and remove obstacles, revealing themselves as an antagonistic force under the guise of righteousness. The protagonists must travel to Yusu Palace to complete trials designed to restore Ao Bing permanently and recharge the sacred lotus. During this journey, Ne Zha confronts his own impulses and grows from a rebellious youth into a strategic and responsible hero. Ao Bing, torn between his dragon heritage and his loyalty to Ne Zha, learns to make conscious choices about identity and belonging. Their cooperation emphasizes themes of unity, mutual trust, and the importance of moral choice over predetermined fate. These trials and conflicts highlight the broader narrative themes of destiny, self-determination, and the reconciliation of internal and external pressures. The climactic confrontation pits Ne Zha, Ao Bing, Tai, surviving dragons, and allies against Wu Yang and his followers. Wu Yang's plan involves the cauldron ritual, designed to destroy opponents and convert their essence into magical elixirs to increase his own power. The ritual is both physically and spiritually devastating, threatening the lives of the protagonists and innocent bystanders. In a heroic act of self-sacrifice, Lady Yin, Ne Zha's mother, intervenes, using her life force to protect Ne Zha and others from the cauldron's lethal fire. Her sacrifice catalyzes Ne Zha's full transformation, granting him a restored body, enhanced powers, and the emotional maturity necessary to confront Wu Yang. The battle culminates with Ne Zha and Ao Bing destroying the cauldron and liberating the captives, exposing Wu Yang's deception, and shifting the balance of power. The remaining dragons, under Ao Guang's leadership, retreat into the sea to regroup, while Ao Bing chooses to remain with Ne Zha, rejecting divisions based on heritage or prejudice. Wu Yang escapes, leaving room for future conflicts, while Shen Gongbao, a morally ambiguous demon warrior, survives and hints at continuing narrative threads. The film's characters are intricately developed, with arcs emphasizing growth, sacrifice, and moral clarity. Ne Zha evolves from impetuous youth to a decisive guardian figure. Ao Bing learns to reconcile loyalty and identity, ultimately choosing friendship and moral duty over fear or prejudice. Lady Yin exemplifies selflessness and maternal devotion, sacrificing herself to protect loved ones. Tai Zhenren embodies wisdom, guidance, and ethical consistency, helping navigate complex spiritual and moral landscapes. Ao Guan, initially a protective but potentially adversarial figure, transforms into a cooperative leader who prioritizes the welfare of his people while stepping back from the conflict. Wu Yang represents corruption, deception, and the dangers of power untempered by morality, while Shen Gongbao occupies the morally gray space between loyalty and self-interest. Minor allies and townspeople illustrate the cost of war and heroism, with some surviving and some perishing during the high-stakes battles, reinforcing the story's emotional and ethical weight. Visually, Ne Zha 2 is a triumph of animation. It blends traditional Chinese artistic motifs with modern 3D animation, creating fluid action sequences, epic landscapes, and mythologically accurate creature designs. The film's soundtrack, composed by Wanpin Chu, Roe Yang, and Rock Chen, fuses orchestral arrangements with traditional Chinese instruments, folk elements, and ethnic musical traditions, producing an immersive auditory experience that complements the visual spectacle. These technical achievements enhance the film's narrative depth, reinforcing themes of mythology, heroism, and cultural identity. The film's release on January 29, 2025, coinciding with the Chinese New Year, contributed to its box office success, drawing massive domestic audiences. Internationally, the film rolled out in February-March 2025, with English-dubbed versions distributed in key markets including the United States. Streaming platforms such as HBO Max subsequently made the film accessible to a global audience, expanding its cultural footprint. Critics praised the film not only for its technical and visual brilliance but also for its rich storytelling, emotional resonance, and ethical complexity. Audiences celebrated its successful balance of myth, action, humor, and heartfelt character moments, solidifying its reputation as a landmark in global animated cinema. Thematically, Ne Zha 2 explores identity, choice, and redemption. Characters demonstrate that one's heritage or birth does not define destiny, moral decisions, courage, and empathy determine true character. The film critiques authority and blind obedience through the portrayal of Wu Yang and the Celestial Sect, showing that unchecked power can corrupt even those charged with maintaining justice. Sacrifice, particularly Lady Yin's, underscores the value of love and altruism, while the unity between dragons, humans, and demons symbolizes reconciliation across traditional divides. These themes, combined with spectacular visuals and compelling character arcs, give Ne Zha 2 both entertainment value and profound cultural significance. Culturally, the film marks a milestone for Chinese animation, demonstrating the potential of Guaman, domestic animation, to compete on a global scale. Its financial success, critical acclaim, and international reach have influenced perceptions of Chinese cinema worldwide, highlighting the appeal of mythologically rich, culturally rooted storytelling in the modern entertainment landscape. The narrative's blend of folklore, epic adventure, and human emotion sets a new benchmark for animated films, offering lessons in heroism, morality, and cultural pride while paving the way for future sequels and expanded storytelling within the Ne Zha universe. In conclusion, Ne Zha 2 represents a harmonious combination of myth, spectacle, and moral storytelling. It continues the journey of beloved characters while deepening the narrative complexity introduced in the first film. Through its engaging plot, compelling character arcs, and cultural resonance, the film delivers a story of growth, sacrifice, and unity, establishing itself as one of the most significant animated films of the decade. Its legacy extends beyond box office records, influencing global perceptions of Chinese animation and demonstrating that stories rooted in cultural heritage can achieve both commercial success and emotional impact on a worldwide scale. In Ne Zha 2, the theme of identity and self-discovery takes center stage as the protagonist struggles with his dual nature, being both a demon and a human. This internal conflict reflects the classic mythological tension between predestined roles and the ability to choose one's path. Ne Zha's journey is not merely physical but deeply psychological, representing the universal human experience of adolescence and the struggle to define oneself amidst external expectations and internal doubts. His search for purpose mirrors the universal challenge of understanding who we truly are beyond labels or societal definitions. Closely tied to this is the exploration of fate versus free will. The film constantly questions whether Ne Zha and other characters are bound by destiny or capable of making independent choices. This theme is grounded in Chinese mythology, where many heroes confront celestial prophecies. Yet, it resonates universally, as humans everywhere wrestle with the tension between destiny and autonomy, asking whether life is a series of predetermined events or shaped by personal decisions. The bonds of friendship and loyalty are pivotal to the narrative. Ne Zha and Ao Bing's relationship is tested repeatedly, requiring trust, sacrifice, and forgiveness. In mythology, alliances and friendships often define the outcome of epic tales, and here the narrative emphasizes that enduring connections can overcome even the most insurmountable obstacles. This theme speaks to the universal truth that strong interpersonal bonds are central to personal growth and survival. A closely related motif is redemption and forgiveness. Ao Bing, along with other characters, grapples with past mistakes and seeks moral restoration. This mirrors many mythological arcs where flawed heroes find the opportunity to atone. On a human level, it reflects the universal belief that change is possible and that people can reconcile with their past through conscious effort and reflection. The film frequently emphasizes sacrifice, with both Ne Zha and Ao Bing risking themselves to restore cosmic and personal balance. Sacrifice in mythology often underlines the greater good, and here it reinforces the universal lesson that meaningful achievements often require personal cost. The narrative encourages viewers to consider the value of selflessness in pursuit of higher goals. In Ne Zha 2, the concept of good versus evil is deliberately blurred. Characters who might initially appear villainous often have complex motives, while heroes wrestle with moral ambiguity. This nuanced approach mirrors life, where morality is rarely absolute, and mirrors the mythological tradition of morally complex characters. Universally, it invites audiences to question simplistic notions of right and wrong. Courage and heroism remain defining aspects of Ne Zha's character. Despite overwhelming challenges, he continues to confront his fears and adversaries. Mythology often celebrates heroes who exhibit bravery in the face of impossible odds, and this resonates with audiences globally, affirming the value of perseverance, moral courage, and resilience. The film also deeply explores parent-child relationships, focusing on Ne Zha's interactions with his parents. Tensions arise from misunderstanding, protection, and expectation, reflecting the archetypal conflicts between parental guidance and youthful independence. Universally, this theme resonates with the emotional complexities of family bonds, duty, and love. Another recurring motif is rebellion against authority. Ne Zha's resistance to the strict rules of the immortals and societal expectations mirrors the archetypal youthful rebellion. In myth and life alike, challenging authority is often a catalyst for personal growth, and the film frames this rebellion as both necessary and transformative. The struggle for balance between chaos and order is central to the story. Conflicts between dragons, representing chaotic natural forces, and the immortals, representing structured cosmic order, highlight the importance of harmony. This tension is a common motif in mythology, reflecting humanity's perpetual quest for equilibrium in life, society, and nature. Transformation and growth permeate the narrative, with characters evolving both physically and spiritually. This aligns with mythological traditions of metamorphosis, where trials catalyze maturation. Universally, the theme underscores the process of personal development and the idea that challenges are essential for growth. The theme of duality and inner conflict is embodied by Ne Zha's internal struggle between destructive impulses and potential for goodness. Mythology often portrays heroes as inherently conflicted, and this mirrors the universal human experience of negotiating desires, fears, and moral choices. Power and responsibility are constant motifs. Ne Zha's immense abilities come with ethical duties, reflecting the ancient idea that extraordinary power must be wielded with care. This lesson is timeless, reminding audiences that privilege, skill, or talent carries inherent responsibility, a theme echoed in both myth and modern storytelling. Connection to nature and elements features prominently, with water, fire, and earth symbolizing both literal and spiritual forces. These elements root the story in myth while reinforcing humanity's intrinsic relationship with the natural world, a universal concern spanning cultures and eras. The film employs rich mythical symbolism, from dragons and lotus flowers to celestial weapons, reinforcing the narrative's roots in Chinese folklore. Such symbols convey moral, spiritual, and cultural meanings, while universally offering audiences accessible metaphors for strength, virtue, and destiny. Resilience and perseverance define many characters, who continue despite repeated setbacks. Mythology often celebrates such qualities, and in real life, these traits resonate as essential for overcoming personal, social, and existential challenges. The motif of identity beyond labels recurs throughout the film. Ne Zha's demon label does not dictate his actions or moral worth, emphasizing that external classifications cannot define true character. Universally, this addresses the importance of self-determination and resisting societal pigeonholing. Community and belonging also play a critical role. Ne Zha's journey is not only personal but involves navigating acceptance within human and immortal societies. Mythology frequently portrays heroes striving for recognition and place, reflecting a universal human desire for connection and validation. Intergenerational wisdom is transmitted through figures like Tai Zhenren, who guide Ne Zha and Ao Bing. This mirrors the mythological motif of mentors passing down knowledge, a practice that ensures cultural continuity and teaches universal lessons about learning from the experiences of elders. Finally, the theme of hope and renewal is central to the story. Through trials, destruction, and reconciliation, characters are reborn metaphorically and literally, symbolized by the seven-colored lotus. Myths often depict hope as a force that endures beyond chaos, and universally, it represents the possibility of starting anew after adversity. Ne Zha 2 represents one of the most ambitious and visually spectacular animated films of the 21st century, emerging not merely as a sequel to the 2019 blockbuster but as a bold statement of the potential of Chinese animation on the global stage. The film, written and directed by Jiaozi, also known as Yang Yu, brings together an extraordinary team of artists, animators, and technicians, resulting in a cinematic experience that merges mythological storytelling with cutting-edge visual effects. Produced by a coalition of studios, including Chengdu Coco Cartoon, Beijing Enlight Media, and Beijing Enlight Pictures, the project reflects an unprecedented scale of collaboration within the Chinese animation industry. With a production budget estimated at $80 million, the filmmakers spared no effort in crafting a film that balances technical mastery with narrative depth, aiming to captivate both domestic audiences and international viewers. At its core, Ne Zha 2 draws inspiration from the classic 16th-century Chinese epic, Fengshen Yanyi, but rather than offering a straightforward retelling, it reinterprets mythological archetypes for contemporary audiences. The story follows the young demigod Ne Zha and his friend Ao Bing, who are struck by divine lightning during a climactic confrontation. This cataclysmic event destroys their physical forms, leaving Ne Zha to be resurrected while Ao Bing survives only as a spirit. Bound to the mortal world without a body of his own, Ao Bing faces the challenge of existing within the consciousness of Ne Zha, creating a tension that drives the emotional core of the film. Under the guidance of their mentor, the immortal Tai Zhenren, the two embark on a perilous journey to restore Ao Bing's form using the mystical seven-colored precious lotus. The resurrection process is fraught with dangers, testing their courage, moral resolve, and the ability to cooperate despite internal conflicts. Throughout their journey, Ne Zha and Ao Bing confront both external threats and personal dilemmas. Cosmic forces, malevolent spirits, and ancient mystical entities seek to manipulate or obstruct their efforts, while the two young heroes grapple with questions of identity, power, and responsibility. Ao Bing struggles with feelings of inadequacy and resentment, reflecting the human experience of feeling trapped within circumstances beyond one's control, while Ne Zha must reconcile his role as both a hero and a friend, navigating the weight of leadership and the consequences of his actions. Their challenges culminate in visually stunning sequences where the lotus blooms in resplendent colors, spirits swirl across the heavens, and the boundaries between mortal and divine blur, creating a cinematic spectacle that merges fantasy and emotional resonance. The film excels in balancing epic spectacle with intimate storytelling. Each battle sequence, whether against celestial warriors or mythical creatures, is choreographed with precision, blending traditional Chinese martial arts motifs with fantastical powers and ethereal environments. Animators completed over 2,000 special effects shots, meticulously crafting scenes that seamlessly combine character animation, elemental forces, and mystical imagery. The rich color palette not only serves an aesthetic function but also reinforces the narrative and emotional tone, with red symbolizing energy and determination, blue reflecting tranquility and introspection, and gold signifying divine power. The animation, combined with an intricate orchestral and traditional score, creates a multisensory experience that elevates the story's mythic qualities while grounding it in universally relatable emotions. The musical dimension of Ne Zha 2 is equally ambitious, featuring a score by Wan Pin Chu, Roy Yang, and Rock Chin. The soundtrack blends orchestral arrangements with traditional Chinese instruments, including the pipa, eru, and suona, and incorporates Mongol-Tuvan throat singing in select sequences to heighten the mystical atmosphere. This synthesis of Eastern and Western musical traditions mirrors the film's narrative strategy, honoring cultural roots while appealing to a global audience. Music cues accentuate emotional beats, enhance tension during action sequences, and underscore moments of rebirth, sacrifice, and triumph, making it an integral component of the storytelling. The voice cast further contributes to the film's depth and accessibility. In the original Mandarin version, Ne Zha is voiced by Lu Yanting, Eo Bing by Han Mo, and Tai Zhenren by Lu Qi, supported by a talented ensemble including Zhang Jiaming, Wang Deshan, and Zhui Yongxi. For international audiences, the English dub features Griffin Burns as Ne Zha, Griffin Poitou as Eo Bing, and Keith David as Tai Zhenren, alongside Colleen Villard and Phil Lamar in supporting roles. The voice direction preserves the emotional integrity of the characters while ensuring that the performances resonate across linguistic and cultural boundaries. Ne Zha 2 premiered in China on January 29, 2025, strategically coinciding with the Lunar New Year holiday, a period of high cinematic attendance. The film quickly became a cultural phenomenon, drawing massive audiences and breaking records within weeks of release. Its international rollout included theatrical debuts in the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand in August 2025, with subsequent releases in Japan, South Korea, and Southeast Asia throughout the spring. Streaming availability followed, with platforms such as HBO Max and regional services hosting the film in late 2025 and early 2026, ensuring access for a global audience. Financially, the film's success was unprecedented. Domestically in China, it grossed over $1.2 billion within the first month, securing its status as the highest-grossing animated film in Chinese history. Internationally, it amassed approximately $1 billion, with significant contributions from markets in the United States, Japan, South Korea, and Southeast Asia, bringing its total global earnings to approximately $2.216 billion. These milestones established Ne Zha 2 as the highest-grossing animated film worldwide for a non-English language release, the first animated film to surpass the $2 billion mark outside Hollywood, and the highest-grossing single-market animated feature. Critical reception mirrored its commercial success. Review aggregators such as Rotten Tomatoes reflected high ratings from both critics and audiences, praising the film for its visual spectacle, engaging narrative, and emotional resonance. Reviewers noted the film's ability to stand alone for newcomers while rewarding viewers familiar with Chinese mythology through layered references, complex character arcs, and rich symbolism. Cultural commentators highlighted the film's significance in bridging traditional Chinese storytelling with contemporary cinematic techniques, offering both a celebration of heritage and a gateway to global audiences. Thematically, Ne Zha 2 operates on multiple levels. The narrative explores the duality of identity through A.O. Bing's spiritual entrapment, examining the tension between internal desires and external constraints. Friendship and cooperation emerge as central motifs, illustrating the strength found in collaboration rather than individual power. Sacrifice and redemption permeate the story, reflecting archetypal hero journeys, while the process of rebirth, symbolized by the seven-colored precious lotus, conveys spiritual renewal and the cyclical nature of existence. The film integrates mythological roots from Fengshen Yanyi, including dragons, celestial beings, and elemental spirits, and draws on Taoist and Buddhist symbolism through visual motifs such as clouds, lotus flowers, and elemental forces. Ethical and moral lessons are embedded throughout, encouraging audiences to reflect on courage, empathy, and the consequences of choices. Ultimately, Ne Zha 2 transcends conventional animated filmmaking, representing a landmark achievement for Chinese cinema and global animation. It demonstrates the potential for culturally rooted storytelling to achieve universal resonance, proving that myths and folklore can be adapted for contemporary audiences without losing depth, nuance, or aesthetic sophistication. The combination of narrative complexity, breathtaking visuals, emotionally compelling performances, and a resonant score positions the film not merely as entertainment but as a cultural and artistic milestone. It affirms that large-scale, mythologically inspired animation can compete with the highest standards of global cinema, offering audiences around the world a story that is at once culturally specific and universally human. Ne Zha 2 is a 2025 Chinese animated fantasy action epic that builds upon the massive success of the 2019 film Ne Zha. It is directed and written by Jiaozi, also known as Yu Yang, and produced through a collaboration of prominent Chinese animation and media studios, including Chengdu Coco Cartoon, Beijing Enlight Media, and Beijing Enlight Pictures. The film's production represents one of the largest undertakings in Chinese animation history, with a reported budget of approximately $80 million. This ambitious financial and creative investment allowed the film to blend cutting-edge 3D animation technology with traditional Chinese artistic motifs, providing a visually stunning cinematic experience that simultaneously honors the rich heritage of Chinese mythology. The narrative of Ne Zha 2 draws extensively from the classic 16th-century Chinese novel Investiture of the Gods, Fengshen Yanyi, which chronicles mythological conflicts between gods, demons, dragons, and mortals in a richly imagined cosmological framework. However, unlike a direct adaptation, the film reinterprets the source material for a modern audience, combining traditional mythology with contemporary storytelling sensibilities. This approach allows the film to explore universal themes of identity, destiny, morality, and personal choice while maintaining a distinctly Chinese cultural perspective. Through its plot, the film weaves together adventure, action, humor, and emotional depth, creating a narrative that appeals to both domestic and international audiences. The film begins in the aftermath of the first Ne Zha movie, where the protagonist Ne Zha and his friend A.O. Bing survive a catastrophic event in which both their physical bodies were destroyed by divine lightning. Though their bodies are gone, their spirits remain, trapped in an unstable form that threatens to dissipate without intervention. Tai Zhenren, their master and spiritual guide, seeks to restore them using the seven-colored sacred lotus, a magical artifact capable of regenerating life. However, the ritual is interrupted when the town of Chintang Pass is attacked by A.O. Guang, the Dragon King and father of A.O. Bing, alongside his dragon forces. Simultaneously, the celestial sect intervenes, creating chaos that complicates the protagonist's journey. These overlapping conflicts establish the high stakes and the intricate web of alliances, betrayals, and moral challenges that define the film. Ne Zha and A.O. Bing, forced to share a single body due to the incomplete restoration, must navigate the difficulties of shared existence, including conflicting instincts, differing approaches to problem-solving, and the emotional strain of coexistence. This shared body becomes a narrative device that highlights themes of cooperation, empathy, and personal growth. Ne Zha's journey throughout the film is one of maturation. He transitions from an impulsive, sometimes reckless youth into a hero capable of strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, and moral discernment. A.O. Bing, similarly, is confronted with the tension between his dragon heritage and his loyalty to his friends and moral principles. By choosing to remain with Ne Zha at the story's conclusion, he symbolizes reconciliation, choice, and the transcendence of inherited prejudices. The central antagonist, Wu Yang, leader of the celestial sect, orchestrates much of the conflict. Under the guise of enforcing justice and maintaining order, he manipulates events to consolidate power, including framing dragons and orchestrating attacks to weaken potential rivals. His ultimate plan involves the cauldron ritual, a destructive process intended to convert adversaries into magical elixirs for his own gain. Wu Yang's deception underscores the film's critical exploration of power, morality, and corruption. The celestial sect, initially perceived as a force of good, is revealed to harbor hidden agendas, highlighting the dangers of blind obedience and moral compromise. During the climactic sequences, Lady Yin, Ne Zha's mother, performs an act of ultimate self-sacrifice. Though she had been previously petrified, she intervenes during the cauldron ritual, using her life essence to shield Ne Zha, Ao Bing, and other allies from lethal magical fire. Her death is both emotional and symbolic, reinforcing the film's themes of familial love, selflessness, and the personal costs of heroism. This act empowers Ne Zha, both spiritually and physically, enabling him to achieve full restoration and mastery over his powers. It is a pivotal moment in his character arc, marking the transition from adolescent impulsiveness to mature heroism. The film also intricately explores the motivations and evolution of its supporting characters. Tai Zhenren serves as a guiding figure, providing wisdom, strategy, and moral clarity amidst chaos. Ao Guan, initially an imposing figure whose desire to protect his son could have placed him at odds with Ne Zha, evolves into a cooperative ally, leading the surviving dragons into a protective exile beneath the sea. Shen Gongbao, a demon warrior, occupies a morally gray space between loyalty, self-interest, and ethical ambiguity. His survival and unresolved allegiances hint at future narrative developments, maintaining narrative tension and continuity for potential sequels. Minor allies and townspeople demonstrate both courage and vulnerability, emphasizing the narrative stakes and the high cost of conflict. Technically, Ne Zha 2 is a triumph of animation and sound design. Its 3D animation seamlessly blends traditional Chinese artistic styles with contemporary cinematic techniques, creating fluid action sequences, expansive environments, and fantastical creature designs that are both culturally resonant and visually spectacular. The musical score, composed by Wan Pin Chu, Roe Yang, and Rock Chen, incorporates orchestral arrangements with Chinese folk instruments, regional ethnic sounds, and choral elements to produce an immersive auditory experience. This combination enhances narrative immersion and emotional resonance, reinforcing the mythic and epic qualities of the story. Upon its release on January 29, 2025, coinciding with the Chinese New Year, Ne Zha 2 drew massive audiences domestically, achieving unprecedented box office records. Its international release followed in February and March, with English-dubbed versions allowing for broader global accessibility. Streaming platforms, including HBO Max, subsequently made the film available worldwide, further expanding its reach. Critical reception highlighted the film's technical mastery, narrative sophistication, and emotional depth, praising its ability to balance humor, action, and moral complexity within a culturally rich framework. Audiences recognized its appeal both as entertainment and as a cultural artifact, celebrating its contribution to global animation. Thematically, the film emphasizes identity, moral choice, and redemption. Characters are defined not by their heritage or birth but by the choices they make and their adherence to personal principles. The narrative critiques unchecked authority and corruption, exemplified by Wu Yang and the celestial sect, demonstrating the consequences of power without accountability. Sacrifice, particularly Lady Yin's, underscores the importance of altruism, familial bonds, and the human capacity for selflessness. The unity between dragons, humans, and other beings reinforces themes of reconciliation, cross-cultural cooperation, and the transcendence of historical or inherited divides. Culturally, Ne Zha 2 represents a milestone in Chinese animation, showcasing the global potential of Guoman films. Its success has influenced perceptions of Chinese cinema, demonstrating that culturally rooted stories can achieve both commercial viability and international acclaim. The narrative's combination of folklore, action, moral lessons, and emotional depth sets a precedent for future animated works, establishing a new standard for storytelling that honors heritage while engaging modern audiences. Its legacy is evident not only in box office records but in its impact on global appreciation of mythologically inspired animation. The story of Ne Zha 2 unfolds in a world suspended between myth and reality, where gods, dragons, demons, and humans interact under a complex cosmic order. From the outset, the narrative situates itself within the consequences of the first film. Ne Zha, once a figure of chaos and fear, has been destroyed in battle, and the Dragon King of the East Sea has lost his son Ao Bing. Yet, the forces of fate, magic, and cosmic design do not allow such losses to remain final. The seven-colored sacred lotus, a mystical creation of Tai Zhenren, is deployed to reconstruct the bodies of Ne Zha and Ao Bing, though their new forms are fragile, incomplete, and intimately connected. This act of regeneration is more than physical, it symbolizes rebirth, the potential for transformation, and the fragility inherent in identity itself. As their souls inhabit a shared body, the film establishes its central philosophical tension. Two beings with opposing natures must learn to coexist, to integrate their strengths and limitations, and to negotiate the delicate balance between chaos and order. Ne Zha emerges as a tempestuous force, embodying the raw power and destructiveness of the demon orb. His impulses are explosive, his sense of justice uncompromising, and yet, as the narrative unfolds, his struggle is internal as well as external. He must reconcile the fear and prejudice that society has always cast upon him with the moral responsibility that his power demands. In contrast, Ao Bing embodies the calm, reflective, and noble qualities of the spirit pearl. He serves as a stabilizing influence, tempering Ne Zha's intensity, and representing the philosophical principle that opposing forces, rather than annihilating each other, can coexist harmoniously. Their shared existence becomes a potent metaphor for duality and balance, echoing Taoist principles of yin and yang, and presenting the audience with a vivid visualization of moral and emotional integration. Amid these personal dynamics, the film situates a larger conflict between the Dragon Clan and the celestial hierarchy of the Chan sect. The Immortals, led by Master Wuliang, maintain their authority under the guise of cosmic order and morality, yet beneath their ornate palaces and ceremonial rituals lies systemic corruption, elitism, and hypocrisy. The trials imposed on Ne Zha, ostensibly designed to test his worth, reveal the darker motives of the immortal leadership, exposing the dangers of unquestioned authority and institutionalized oppression. This narrative thread underscores a recurrent theme in Ne Zha 2, the tension between power and morality, authority and justice. In contrast, the dragons, often cast historically as antagonists or monsters in myth, emerge as sympathetic figures, embodying resilience, the consequences of historical oppression, and the moral complexity of beings traditionally deemed other. Their struggle emphasizes the ethical implications of prejudice and the necessity of empathy in assessing moral worth. The film's aesthetic choices reinforce these themes. The seven-colored sacred lotus is depicted with radiant, ethereal imagery, emphasizing its symbolic role in rebirth and transformation. The visual contrasts of fire and water, Ne Zha's fiery destruction versus Ao Bing and the dragon's flowing, fluid power, serve as elemental representations of their philosophical and moral dichotomies. Celestial architecture, inspired by historical Chinese ritual objects such as bronze tripods, anchors the film's fantastical elements in cultural reality, while simultaneously commenting on the weight of authority, the continuity of tradition, and the potential rigidity of hierarchical systems. As the narrative progresses, personal stakes intersect with cosmic ones. Familial love, sacrifice, and trauma permeate the story. Ne Zha's parents, Lady Yin and Li Jing, are not mere bystanders. Their grief, moral dilemmas, and protective instincts remind the audience that even cosmic struggles ripple through human lives. Lady Yin's maternal compassion anchors Ne Zha, while Li Jing's sense of duty and moral responsibility exemplifies the burdens of leadership. Together, they highlight the human dimensions of a story populated by gods and demons, emphasizing that the preservation of home, community, and moral integrity is central to the narrative stakes. The film intricately weaves mythological references with modern storytelling techniques. Dragons, demons, Taoist immortals, celestial artifacts, and reincarnation all function as narrative devices and symbolic elements. Each battle, each trial, each interaction carries layers of meaning. Ne Zha's fiery clashes are not just displays of power but explorations of morality and identity. Ao Bing's interventions are not just heroic acts but affirmations of balance, restraint, and ethical choice. The interplay of these symbols, fire and water, lotus and orb, celestial and mortal, creates a narrative rhythm that is as philosophical as it is spectacular. Furthermore, Ne Zha too does not shy away from moral ambiguity. Antagonists are complex. Master Wuliang and the Chan sect are not evil for its own sake, but are products of systemic corruption, fear of the other, and rigid dogma. Dragons, once considered monsters, reveal depth, emotion, and ethical reasoning. The film challenges simplistic binaries, illustrating that morality is defined by choice, action, and empathy rather than birth, species, or assigned identity. This philosophical nuance elevates Ne Zha 2 beyond a standard animated blockbuster into a mythic meditation on justice, identity, and the fluidity of good and evil. One of the most striking visual motifs in Ne Zha 2 is the dragon. Dragons are deeply rooted in Chinese mythology, symbolizing power, authority, wisdom, and the forces of nature, particularly water. In the film, dragons appear not only as literal characters, like Ao Bing's dragon heritage, but also as representations of chaotic natural forces that must be balanced by the hero. Universally, dragons symbolize the confrontation with immense challenges and the inner strength needed to overcome them, making them a compelling visual metaphor for both external and internal struggles. The lotus flower is another recurring motif, particularly embodied by the seven-colored precious lotus. In Chinese culture, the lotus signifies purity, spiritual awakening, and rebirth, growing unsullied from the mud. In the movie, the lotus is both a literal magical artifact and a symbol of hope, renewal, and the potential for transformation. This aligns universally with the idea that beauty, strength, and purity can emerge from adversity, reinforcing the film's theme of redemption and growth. Fire and flames are central to Ne Zha's identity and power. Traditionally, fire in Chinese mythology represents transformation, destruction, and purification. In the animation, Ne Zha's fiery attacks and aura not only create visually stunning sequences but also symbolize his inner strength, passion, and potential for both creation and destruction. Universally, fire represents energy, determination, and the power to forge change, which reflects Ne Zha's personal journey. The motif of water appears throughout the film, especially in the scenes involving dragons and the sea. Water in Chinese mythology is associated with adaptability, wisdom, and the primordial flow of life. The sea battles and water effects in the movie are not only visually impressive but also symbolic of fluidity, emotional depth, and the challenges of navigating unpredictable circumstances. Universally, water represents resilience, cleansing, and the constant ebb and flow of life. Celestial weapons and magical artifacts, like Ne Zha's fire-tipped spear or magical rings, are potent visual motifs. In mythology, such weapons signify divine authority, heroism, and the moral responsibility tied to power. In Ne Zha 2, these weapons are extensions of the characters' identities, embodying their choices, virtues, and inner struggles. Universally, these motifs reinforce the idea that tools of power reflect the ethical use of one's abilities. Light and color symbolism is prevalent, particularly with vibrant hues representing emotions and moral energy. The seven-colored lotus, glowing a radiant spectrum, communicates hope, magic, and transformation. In battle sequences, fiery reds and oceanic blues visually delineate chaos from order, passion from reason. Universally, color is a visual shorthand for emotional and thematic depth, helping audiences intuitively grasp complex ideas. The film frequently uses sky and celestial imagery, with floating palaces, clouds, and star-filled backgrounds. These visuals represent the higher spiritual and moral planes the characters interact with, connecting the narrative to the divine and immortal realm. Mythologically, such imagery signals transcendence, wisdom, and cosmic order. Universally, it evokes awe and the human fascination with the heavens, destiny, and forces greater than oneself. Spiritual auras and energy flows are used to illustrate power, internal conflict, and emotional intensity. In scenes of battle or transformation, Ne Zha and Ao Bing are surrounded by dynamic, flowing energy lines that translate abstract spiritual states into a visual language. In Chinese mythology, this kind of qi or life force embodies vitality and moral strength. Universally, visualizing energy conveys inner life, passion, and the often invisible forces that drive decisions and growth. The motif of storms and natural catastrophes, typhoons, tidal waves, lightning, is consistently tied to narrative tension and the clash of forces. These visual motifs are rooted in mythological symbolism, where natural disasters often reflect divine will or cosmic imbalance. Universally, storms in art and storytelling symbolize upheaval, conflict, and the necessity of resilience in the face of uncontrollable forces. Finally, mirrors and reflections appear subtly in various sequences, representing introspection, duality, and the challenge of confronting oneself. In Chinese mythology, mirrors often symbolize truth and the revelation of inner nature. In the film, these visuals emphasize themes of self-discovery, moral choice, and identity. Universally, reflections invite audiences to consider inner truth versus outward appearances and the importance of self-awareness. From the opening moments of Ne Zha 2, the audience is thrust into a world that is at once familiar and fantastical, a realm where mythology and modern cinematic storytelling converge seamlessly. The story begins in medias res, capturing the aftermath of the cataclysmic confrontation that defined the first installment, a battle in which Ne Zha and his companion Ao Bing were struck by divine lightning. The initial visual sequence is breathtaking, bolts of energy crack the sky, shattering mountains and tossing the ocean into turmoil. Animators employed meticulous attention to fluid dynamics and particle effects to render the storm with an almost tangible intensity. The camera pans through layers of storm clouds and celestial lightning, emphasizing the epic scale while immediately establishing the high stakes for the characters and the world they inhabit. As the dust settles, Ne Zha's body, though heavily damaged, begins to stabilize, glowing with the residual energy of divine intervention. Ao Bing, however, is reduced to a spirit form, invisible to most but perceptible through the shimmering waves of energy surrounding him. This spiritual entrapment introduces the central conflict of identity and agency. While Ne Zha can interact with the physical world, Ao Bing exists in a liminal space, his consciousness tethered to Ne Zha, resulting in moments of tension, frustration, and, at times, poignant humor. The film leverages these early sequences not only to establish the stakes but also to explore themes of interdependence, friendship, and the consequences of power. Tai Zhenren, their immortal mentor, emerges next in a sequence that combines both grandeur and warmth. Rendered with intricate detail, his robes flow like liquid gold, and the subtle movement of his hair and staff conveys a sense of calm authority. Tai's guidance is crucial. He introduces the seven-colored precious lotus, a mythical artifact capable of reconstructing Ao Bing's mortal form. The narrative here delves into the metaphysical mechanics of resurrection, exploring concepts of energy, spirit, and the intricate balance between mortal and divine forces. Visual metaphors abound, with the lotus petals glowing and swirling in harmonic resonance, echoing Taoist and Buddhist symbolism of purity, enlightenment, and rebirth. As Ne Zha and Ao Bing embark on their journey, the film introduces a series of trials designed to test their abilities, moral compass, and partnership. One of the first challenges involves navigating the abyssal sea, a mystical realm inhabited by sea spirits, elemental guardians, and treacherous currents animated with unparalleled realism. The water simulation in this sequence required a blend of computational fluid dynamics and handcrafted effects to achieve a balance of hyperrealism and mythic abstraction. Each guardian presents a unique challenge, forcing the protagonists to employ strategy, teamwork, and adaptability, highlighting the theme that heroism is as much about intelligence and emotional resilience as it is about physical strength. The journey progresses through multiple realms, each meticulously designed to reflect the internal and external challenges the characters face. The celestial forest, for instance, is a labyrinth of towering trees whose leaves shimmer with an ethereal light, each motion calculated to evoke both wonder and unease. Here, Ne Zha confronts echoes of his past, hallucinations and memories that force him to reconcile mistakes and losses. Ao Bing, invisible to others, guides him through these trials, establishing a dynamic of mentorship and mutual reliance that deepens their bond and underscores the film's exploration of interdependence and trust. Conflict intensifies when the antagonist is introduced, a powerful cosmic entity seeking to harness the combined energies of mortal and divine beings for domination. This character, whose form constantly shifts between humanoid and elemental states, embodies chaos and imbalance. The ensuing confrontations are both spectacular and emotionally charged, blending high-octane action sequences with strategic thinking and moral decision-making. The filmmakers intentionally structured these battles to emphasize character growth. Victory is not achieved through brute force alone, but through collaboration, ingenuity, and ethical choices. The choreography of these sequences incorporates elements of traditional Chinese martial arts, celestial combat motifs, and fantastical abilities, resulting in a spectacle that is at once culturally rooted and visually universal. The resurrection of Ao Bing is depicted in a series of sequences that combine visual grandeur with narrative symbolism. As the lotus blooms, petals radiate multicolored light, spiraling around Ne Zha and Ao Bing, symbolizing unity, balance, and the harmonization of mortal and divine energies. This visual motif recurs throughout the film, reinforcing thematic concerns about growth, transformation, and the cyclical nature of life. During these sequences, the score incorporates traditional instruments such as the pipa and eru, layered with orchestral accompaniment, creating an auditory landscape that resonates with both tension and hope. Throughout the narrative, the film interweaves moments of humor, levity, and emotional intimacy, preventing the story from becoming solely an epic spectacle. Interactions between Ne Zha and Ao Bing often involve witty banter, moments of teasing, and subtle cultural references, grounding the mythological narrative in relatable human experience. Secondary characters, including spirits, guardians, and minor immortals, contribute to both world-building and narrative pacing, providing context, stakes, and occasional comedic relief that balances the film's more intense sequences. The climax of Ne Zha 2 synthesizes the film's visual, musical, and narrative threads. The final confrontation is staged across multiple planes, the physical realm, celestial skies, and a liminal spiritual space, with Ne Zha and Ao Bing combining their strengths to confront the antagonist. Strategic decision-making, moral courage, and emotional resilience are emphasized over raw power, reinforcing the film's thematic core. Visual effects peak during this sequence, with dynamic lighting, particle simulations, and character animation reaching unprecedented levels of detail and fluidity. The score swells to a crescendo, integrating leitmotifs associated with rebirth, friendship, and courage, enhancing the emotional resonance of the climax. Following the resolution, the film offers a denouement that balances closure with openness for future narratives. Ao Bing is fully restored, and the bond between him and Ne Zha is stronger than ever. The world around them, transformed by their actions, reflects the cyclical nature of life and the enduring impact of courage, cooperation, and ethical choice. Subtle visual cues, such as lingering glows from the seven-colored lotus and the gentle ripple of restored waters, provide both narrative and aesthetic closure while inviting contemplation. From a production standpoint, Ne Zha 2 represents a milestone in animation, not only within China but globally. Over 4,000 artists contributed across more than 100 animation studios, resulting in more than 2,000 special effects shots, nearly 2,000 meticulously animated sequences, and a runtime that balances spectacle with narrative depth. The fusion of traditional Chinese cultural elements with contemporary cinematic techniques demonstrates the potential for cross-cultural storytelling in animation, inviting international audiences to engage with mythologies beyond their own while preserving emotional universality. Financially, the film shattered records, grossing over $2.2 billion worldwide and becoming the highest-grossing animated film in history for a non-English language production. Critical reception was overwhelmingly positive, with reviewers praising the film's animation, narrative depth, cultural richness, and emotional resonance. The film's success has broader implications, signaling a shift in the global animation industry toward recognizing the potential of non-Western storytelling at a scale that can compete with major Hollywood productions. Thematically, Ne Zha 2 continues to resonate with audiences through its exploration of identity, friendship, sacrifice, redemption, and the balance between destiny and agency. Ao Bing's struggle with spiritual entrapment mirrors universal questions about selfhood and autonomy, while the protagonist's shared journey emphasizes the value of collaboration and empathy. The resurrection motif and the recurring visual symbol of the seven-colored lotus reinforce ideas of renewal, moral choice, and the cyclical nature of life, while the rich animation, color design, and musical scoring integrate cultural symbolism with universal narrative resonance. The combination of visual innovation, narrative complexity, and emotional depth positions Ne Zha 2 as a landmark achievement, bridging mythological heritage with modern cinematic sensibilities. It demonstrates that animated storytelling can carry the weight of epic narrative, cultural exploration, and emotional resonance, all while appealing to a global audience. The film establishes a new benchmark for international animation, both in terms of technical execution and narrative ambition, and affirms the capacity of culturally rooted storytelling to achieve universal impact. After the catastrophic lightning strike at the end of the first Ne Zha, both Ne Zha and Ao Bing exist only as unstable spirits. Their disembodied forms drift aimlessly until Tai Zhenren, their master and mentor, initiates a ritual to restore their bodies. Using the mystical seven-colored sacred lotus, Tai attempts to reconstruct their physical forms. The ritual begins with Ne Zha and Ao Bing being enveloped in swirling multicolored energy, ethereal light casting reflections that illuminate the spiritual plane. However, before the ritual can fully stabilize, Chentang Pass, Ne Zha's hometown, comes under sudden attack by Ao Guang, the Dragon King, accompanied by other dragon rulers. Ao Guang, convinced that his son has perished and seeking to reclaim honor, unleashes a torrent of elemental attacks that devastate the surrounding landscapes. Simultaneously, agents of the celestial sect intervene, ostensibly to protect the mortal realm but with hidden motives. The overlap of these attacks causes the sacred lotus to destabilize, resulting in Ao Bing's new body disintegrating before it fully forms. With no immediate solution, Ne Zha and Ao Bing's souls are forced to coexist in a single body, a precarious arrangement that heightens the tension and drives the emotional narrative. The initial days of their shared existence are fraught with challenges. Ne Zha, known for impulsive tendencies, struggles to manage the dual consciousness within him. Ao Bing's temperament, more measured and cautious, conflicts with Ne Zha's risk-taking nature. These internal conflicts are mirrored in their interactions with allies, particularly Tai Zhenren, who must mediate between the two spirits while strategizing against external threats. The shared body creates moments of both comedic friction and dramatic tension, as the characters navigate daily life while simultaneously preparing for the spiritual and martial challenges ahead. During this period, Ne Zha begins to confront the consequences of his past actions, reflecting on his responsibilities and the importance of controlling his immense powers. Ao Bing, on the other hand, must reconcile his dragon heritage with the moral imperatives of the mortal world, gradually embracing the possibility of a future beyond the expectations imposed by his lineage. The turning point occurs when Tai Zhenren identifies Yusu Palace, the celestial sect's stronghold, as the only place where the protagonists can access the ritual needed to fully restore Ao Bing. The journey toward the palace is perilous, encompassing treacherous terrain, magical guardians, and environmental hazards infused with mystical energy. Along the way, Ne Zha and Ao Bing encounter remnants of the dragon and human forces affected by the initial battles. These encounters force the protagonists to demonstrate not only strength but strategic intelligence and compassion. Relationships deepen during these trials, particularly the bond between Ne Zha and Ao Bing, which evolves from reluctant cohabitation to mutual respect, understanding, and trust. Tai Zhenren continues to provide guidance, teaching them the philosophical and spiritual lessons necessary to succeed, emphasizing restraint, foresight, and the alignment of one's actions with moral principles. Upon reaching Yusu Palace, the protagonists confront a series of complex trials designed by Wu Yang, the leader of the celestial sect. These trials test their combat skills, intellect, and ethical judgment. Initially, the trials appear straightforward, requiring Ne Zha and Ao Bing to demonstrate martial prowess and solve puzzles imbued with ancient wisdom. However, as they progress, it becomes evident that Wu Yang's intentions are far from benevolent. The trials are rigged to exhaust, trap, or even destroy them, revealing Wu Yang's hidden agenda to consolidate power and eliminate rivals under the guise of moral testing. This revelation heightens the narrative tension, forcing the protagonists to adapt rapidly and rely on their inner strength, ingenuity, and the deepening trust between them. During this segment, minor allies provide crucial support, including mortal townspeople and minor immortals who assist in navigating the palace's mystical defenses, adding layers of narrative complexity and showcasing the interconnectedness of all characters. The climactic confrontation occurs when Wu Yang initiates the cauldron ritual, a device intended to convert enemies into magical elixirs and thereby amplify his power. The cauldron, a massive construct imbued with both physical and mystical energy, threatens to obliterate all in its vicinity. The scene is visually breathtaking, flames of ethereal colors swirl violently, magical barriers crackle with energy, and the air vibrates with spiritual resonance. It is during this ritual that Lady Yin, Ne Zha's mother, intervenes in a decisive act of self-sacrifice. Previously petrified, she channels her life force into shielding Ne Zha, Ao Bing, and allied forces, absorbing much of the cauldron's destructive energy. Her death is deeply affecting, emotionally anchoring the narrative and catalyzing Ne Zha's transformation into his fully restored, empowered form. This moment emphasizes themes of familial devotion, moral courage, and the personal cost of heroism. With his new powers and restored body, Ne Zha becomes the central figure in dismantling Wu Yang's plan. Ao Bing, now fully conscious within their shared identity, fights alongside him, and together they coordinate the liberation of captured allies. The battle is both physical and spiritual, requiring mastery of magical abilities, combat strategy, and moral discernment. Ao Guang and the surviving dragons, initially antagonistic, ally with Ne Zha and Ao Bing, exemplifying the film's emphasis on unity and reconciliation. Wu Yang's forces, including loyal sect members, are ultimately defeated, though Wu Yang himself escapes, preserving the possibility of future conflicts. Shen Gongbao, a morally ambiguous demon warrior, also survives, maintaining narrative tension for potential sequels. The resolution emphasizes moral and thematic lessons. Ne Zha and Ao Bing, by choosing friendship, cooperation, and ethical action over revenge or fear, embody the film's central message, that identity and destiny are determined by choices, not by heritage. Lady Yin's sacrifice highlights the value of love, selflessness, and the importance of moral courage. The unity among dragons, humans, and demons illustrates the potential for reconciliation and the transcendence of historical divisions. Ao Bing's choice to remain with Ne Zha rather than return to the sea with his fellow dragons reinforces this theme, symbolizing the triumph of conscious moral choice over inherited prejudice. The film concludes with a post-credits scene hinting at ongoing threats and narrative possibilities. Wu Yang is shown negotiating with captive former allies, suggesting his continued influence and the persistence of moral challenges in the Ne Zha universe. This closing sets the stage for sequels, preserving the expansive mythological and moral framework established throughout the film. It underscores the ongoing tension between authority, morality, and individual choice, ensuring that the story's universe remains vibrant and dynamic for future storytelling. The resurrection of Ne Zha and Ao Bing sets the stage for a profound exploration of identity and moral agency. Though their bodies are physically restored, their shared existence is fraught with tension, each has distinct impulses, loyalties, and perspectives, yet neither can act independently without impacting the other. This literal fusion becomes a central metaphor for the struggle of integrating conflicting traits within a single individual, reflecting Taoist and Confucian ideas about balance, harmony, and the cultivation of self. As Ne Zha's fiery, impulsive nature clashes with Ao Bing's measured, empathic disposition, the audience is invited to witness not just a battle of powers but a dialogue between temperament, morality, and destiny. Every choice the characters make, whether in combat, in moral deliberation, or in interaction with friends and family, underscores that identity is not static, nor is morality absolute, rather, both are the products of continuous negotiation and ethical discernment. The early narrative emphasizes the consequences of past conflicts. The Dragon King, Ao Guang, having lost his son in prior events, embodies the destructive potential of grief and unbridled vengeance. His initial rage and determination to punish Ne Zha exemplify the complexities of authority and familial loyalty. He is neither wholly villainous nor heroic but is trapped by his own emotions and social position. Similarly, Master Wu Yang's calculated trials reveal that institutionalized power, even when cloaked in the language of justice or cosmic order, can perpetuate suffering and injustice. Through these antagonists, the film critiques rigid hierarchies, dogma, and the ethical dangers inherent in systems that prioritize authority over compassion. Ne Zha's relationship with Ao Bing deepens as the narrative unfolds. Their shared body forces moments of cooperation, conflict, and compromise, illustrating that true harmony arises not from dominance but from understanding and empathy. This duality extends beyond the personal to the societal and cosmic levels. Dragons and demons, long marginalized and demonized by the celestial hierarchy, demonstrate that goodness and moral worth are not determined by lineage or species but by action, choice, and ethical consistency. These layers of moral complexity distinguish Ne Zha too from conventional animated storytelling, offering a meditation on prejudice, redemption, and the necessity of viewing the other with empathy rather than fear. The narrative's mythological and symbolic elements are consistently interwoven with the plot. The seven-colored sacred lotus, for example, is not merely a magical device, it is a visual and narrative symbol of resilience, transformation, and the potential for new beginnings. Every moment of lotus-fueled restoration, each petal enveloping the protagonists, each spark of renewed energy, reinforces the thematic motif that even destruction can be fertile ground for growth and moral awakening. Fire and water, frequently juxtaposed in battle sequences, serve as elemental metaphors for the characters' internal struggles. Ne Zha's fire embodies chaos, raw emotion, and the untamed aspects of the self, while Ao Bing's water represents patience, reflection, and the power of restraint. The human dimension remains central throughout the film. Lady Yin and Li Jing exemplify parental devotion and the emotional stakes of cosmic conflict. Lady Yin's protective instincts, her willingness to endure suffering for Ne Zha, and her unwavering compassion anchor the story in human emotion, reminding the audience that even the most spectacular mythological battles have consequences in the mortal realm. Li Jing's navigation of duty, morality, and leadership emphasizes that governance and responsibility are ethically complex, requiring difficult choices that may carry personal or communal costs. Their presence ensures that the narrative, while mythically grand, remains emotionally grounded, connecting fantastical events to relatable human concerns. As the film progresses toward its climax, these thematic threads converge. The trials imposed by Master Wu Yang, the lingering grief and rage of Ao Guang, and the collective struggle of dragons, demons, and human allies create a high-stakes environment in which characters must confront not only external threats but also internal moral dilemmas. Ne Zha's mastery of his power, combined with Ao Bing's wisdom, symbolizes the successful integration of duality, chaos harnessed through compassion, impulsiveness guided by reflection, raw strength balanced by ethical responsibility. Battles are not merely visual spectacles, they serve as dramatizations of philosophical principles, illustrating that personal growth, cooperation, and moral discernment are as critical as martial prowess in resolving conflict. The resolution of the film reinforces its symbolic and thematic preoccupations. The celestial hierarchy is challenged, injustices against dragons and demons are addressed, and Ne Zha and Ao Bing's identities are no longer fractured but reconciled. Importantly, the film does not propose simplistic moral solutions, instead, it demonstrates that balance requires vigilance, empathy, and continual ethical engagement. Authority must be questioned, prejudices confronted, and relationships nurtured, lessons that resonate both within the narrative and in the real-world contexts of social, political, and personal morality. Visually, Ne Zha 2 sustains its thematic motifs through meticulous attention to detail. Fire, water, celestial light, lotus petals, dragon scales, and magical artifacts are not merely aesthetic flourishes, each functions symbolically, reinforcing duality, moral tension, rebirth, and cultural heritage. The filmmakers integrate traditional Chinese artistic motifs, jade carvings, folk art-inspired designs, and ritual symbolism, into modern animation techniques, creating a unique aesthetic that honors cultural history while appealing to contemporary global audiences. Throughout, the film's narrative structure mirrors its philosophical concerns. Plot progression is intertwined with character development and symbolic representation. Every major battle, every trial, and every interpersonal conflict advances both story and thematic exploration. The intertwined destinies of Ne Zha and Ao Bing, the struggles of marginalized dragons, the failings and redemption of authority figures, and the moral choices of mortal parents collectively create a dense, interrelated tapestry of myth, morality, and human experience. This narrative complexity challenges the audience to consider deeper questions. What constitutes moral integrity? How can one reconcile personal desire with societal duty? What is the role of empathy in resolving systemic injustice? By blending mythological depth, symbolic richness, and human emotion, Ne Zha 2 establishes itself not merely as an animated spectacle but as a philosophical work. It demonstrates that mythology can be a lens for examining contemporary moral and social issues, that traditional stories can illuminate universal truths, and that even within the fantastical, the ethical dilemmas of identity, choice, and justice remain profoundly human. The integration of symbolic elements, demon orb, spirit pearl, lotus, fire and water, dragons, and celestial artifacts, ensures that the narrative operates on multiple levels simultaneously, engaging audiences visually, emotionally, and intellectually. Ultimately, the film's enduring power lies in its capacity to balance spectacle with depth. Its characters are archetypal yet individualized, its conflicts are mythic yet intimately human, its symbolism is elaborate yet emotionally resonant. Ne Zha 2 invites audiences to consider not only the narrative arc of its protagonists but the broader philosophical questions it raises, the nature of identity, the consequences of prejudice, the responsibilities of power, and the transformative potential of empathy, cooperation, and moral choice. In doing so, it transforms ancient mythology into a living, breathing narrative for the modern age, demonstrating the enduring relevance and adaptability of cultural stories in exploring universal human concerns. Ne Zha 2, released in 2025, is a landmark Chinese animated fantasy adventure film that builds upon the mythological universe established in the original Ne Zha, 2019. Directed and written by Jiaozi, Yang Yu, the movie blends traditional Chinese mythology with modern cinematic techniques, creating a visually spectacular and emotionally resonant story. The narrative draws inspiration from the classic 16th-century novel Investiture of the Gods, Fengshen Yanni, by Su Zhonglin, yet adapts the story for contemporary audiences, exploring themes of identity, destiny, morality, and personal growth. The film's production was a massive undertaking, involving thousands of animators and multiple studios, showcasing an unprecedented level of collaboration in Chinese animation. With a budget of approximately $80 million, the movie combines cutting-edge CGI, intricate special effects, and culturally rich artistic design, establishing it as a milestone in global animation. The central character, Ne Zha, embodies the theme of identity and self-discovery. As a being with both demonic and human qualities, he grapples with his nature, struggling to define who he is beyond labels imposed by society and mythology. This internal conflict mirrors the mythological tension between fate and personal choice and resonates universally with audiences as a metaphor for adolescence, the search for self, and the challenge of navigating societal expectations. Paired with this is the exploration of fate versus free will, as Ne Zha and his allies confront their predestined roles in the celestial and mortal realms. The film asks whether destiny is fixed or if individuals can reshape their paths through conscious action, a universal question reflecting humanity's struggle for autonomy in the face of external constraints. Interpersonal dynamics are central to the narrative, particularly the themes of friendship and loyalty. The bond between Ne Zha and Ao Bing is repeatedly tested by betrayal, misunderstanding, and high-stakes conflict. This relationship underscores the mythological motif that enduring alliances can determine the outcome of epic struggles. At a universal level, the story affirms the value of trust, mutual support, and sacrifice in maintaining meaningful human connections. Likewise, redemption and forgiveness permeate the film. Characters like Ao Bing confront past mistakes and seek moral restoration, reflecting the mythological archetype of flawed heroes who learn and evolve through hardship. Universally, these themes emphasize the human capacity for growth, transformation, and reconciliation. The motif of sacrifice recurs throughout the story, highlighting the personal cost of heroism and moral responsibility. Both Ne Zha and Ao Bing make significant sacrifices to restore balance to their world, reinforcing the idea that true achievement often comes at the expense of comfort or safety. This principle is common in mythology and resonates universally as a reflection on selflessness and ethical duty. Similarly, the film blurs the boundaries of good and evil, presenting characters with complex motives and moral ambiguity. By challenging simplistic notions of heroism and villainy, the story mirrors the real-world complexity of ethical decision-making and human behavior. Courage and heroism define Ne Zha's journey. Despite facing immense threats and internal doubts, he demonstrates bravery and resilience, echoing the archetypal hero's journey in myth. His actions also underscore a key moral principle, that true heroism involves perseverance, moral courage, and the willingness to confront both external and internal adversities. The film explores parent-child relationships through Ne Zha's interactions with his parents, capturing the tension between protection, expectation, and independence. This motif highlights the universal challenges of family dynamics, generational conflict, and the emotional complexity inherent in familial love. Rebellion against authority is another significant theme. Ne Zha challenges the strict rules of the immortals and societal norms, reflecting the archetypal narrative of youthful defiance in myth and literature. Such rebellion is framed not as mere disobedience but as a necessary step toward personal growth, self-realization, and ethical decision-making. The struggle for balance between chaos and order also permeates the story, as dragons, representing natural and chaotic forces, clash with immortals, representing structured cosmic order. This motif illustrates the tension between unpredictability and stability, a theme that resonates across cultures as a reflection of the human desire to harmonize conflicting forces. The story emphasizes transformation and growth, with characters evolving physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Mythologically, such metamorphoses symbolize maturity and enlightenment, while universally they mirror the process of personal development through trial and adversity. Closely related is the theme of duality and inner conflict, as Ne Zha grapples with the destructive and constructive aspects of his nature. This internal tension exemplifies the universal struggle to reconcile conflicting desires, fears, and moral choices. Power and responsibility form another central motif. Ne Zha's immense abilities carry moral and ethical implications, reflecting the ancient axiom that extraordinary power demands careful stewardship. Universally, this reinforces the idea that privilege and skill must be exercised with conscience and integrity. Similarly, connection to nature and the elements is woven into the film's visuals and narrative. Water, fire, and earth symbolize spiritual forces and natural energy, highlighting humanity's intrinsic relationship with the natural world, a motif both mythological and universal. The film employs rich mythical symbolism, including dragons, lotus flowers, and celestial weapons, which convey moral, spiritual, and cultural significance. These symbols operate on multiple levels. Narratively, they anchor the story in Chinese tradition; metaphorically, they communicate universal ideas of virtue, strength, and destiny. Resilience and perseverance recur throughout, as characters confront repeated challenges yet persist toward their goals, echoing mythological narratives and reflecting the human capacity to endure adversity. Identity beyond labels is an important theme, illustrated by Ne Zha's struggle against being defined solely as a demon. The story emphasizes that external labels cannot determine one's moral worth or choices, a universal lesson about self-determination and resisting societal pigeonholing. Closely connected is community and belonging, as Ne Zha seeks acceptance among both humans and immortals. Mythology often frames heroes in the context of social recognition, reflecting humanity's innate desire for connection, support, and validation. Intergenerational wisdom is imparted through mentors like Tai Zhenren, who guide Ne Zha and Ao Bing. This motif underscores the transmission of knowledge, values, and cultural heritage, a principle deeply embedded in myth and universally relevant to human society. Finally, hope and renewal remain central, symbolized by artifacts such as the seven-colored lotus. The narrative demonstrates that through struggle and self-discovery, characters can achieve rebirth and transformation, a message of resilience, optimism, and the possibility of starting anew that transcends cultural boundaries. The visual language of Ne Zha too reinforces these thematic motifs. Dragons are not only literal characters but symbols of power, wisdom, and natural forces, representing the challenges that must be met with courage. The lotus flower, particularly the seven-colored lotus, embodies purity, spiritual awakening, and renewal, serving as both a plot device and a symbol of hope. Fire and water serve dual roles as both visually stunning elements and representations of transformation, passion, adaptability, and resilience. Celestial weapons and magical artifacts reflect moral responsibility and heroic identity, while light, color, and aura effects visually communicate emotion, morality, and spiritual energy. Sky and celestial imagery reinforce the connection to divine realms and higher ideals, while storms and natural catastrophes symbolize upheaval and the power of uncontrollable forces, both natural and moral. Even subtle motifs like mirrors and reflections convey introspection, duality, and self-awareness, reminding viewers that the journey toward heroism is as much internal as external. Together, these visual motifs create a rich tapestry that complements the narrative's thematic complexity, immersing audiences in a world that is simultaneously mythological, moral, and emotionally compelling. In essence, Ne Zha too is a masterful synthesis of narrative depth, mythological richness, and visual spectacle. Its exploration of identity, morality, courage, redemption, and transformation, paired with symbolic and visually arresting motifs, makes it a work that resonates universally while remaining firmly rooted in Chinese cultural heritage. The film demonstrates the power of animation not just as entertainment but as a medium for conveying complex ideas, emotional truths, and timeless human experiences. Through its intricate storytelling and breathtaking visuals, Ne Zha too achieves a rare balance between mythic grandeur, personal journey, and universal relevance, establishing itself as a landmark in global animation and a cultural phenomenon with enduring significance. Following the aftermath of the initial lightning strike, the film transitions into a quieter, more introspective sequence that explores the psychological and emotional states of Ne Zha and Ao Bing. This sequence begins in a desolate landscape, where remnants of the storm litter the earth with shattered rocks, splintered trees, and residual arcs of celestial energy that shimmer like fractured glass. Ne Zha, still glowing faintly from the divine strike, walks through the terrain, his footsteps leaving ethereal footprints that slowly fade, symbolizing his tenuous connection between life and spirit. Meanwhile, Ao Bing, invisible to most, watches silently, his form an iridescent silhouette, expressing the tension between presence and absence, physicality and spirit. The animator's meticulously layered particle effects, translucency, and light distortion to create Ao Bing's spectral presence, allowing the audience to feel both his separation from and connection to Ne Zha. This visual metaphor is reinforced by dialogue in which Ao Bing laments his lack of agency, and Ne Zha reassures him, foreshadowing their journey toward mutual understanding and cooperation. Their first major trial emerges when Tai Zhenren introduces the seven-colored precious lotus and the concept of reconstructing Ao Bing's body. The lotus itself is an engineering marvel in animation terms. Each petal contains a subtle gradation of color, each layer animated individually to ripple, fold, and pulse with energy as if it possesses a consciousness. The lotus serves as both a plot device and a visual anchor for the film's central themes of rebirth, transformation, and the cyclical interplay between mortal and divine forces. Tai instructs the duo that the lotus must be nurtured, not simply used as a tool. This instruction underscores a recurring motif in the narrative: power without understanding is ineffective, while moral and spiritual insight are essential for true mastery. The cinematography employs sweeping pans and slow-motion moments to highlight the lotus's ethereal glow, creating an immersive sense of awe. The first traversal of the abyssal sea tests not only their physical skills but also their psychological resilience. The abyssal sea is depicted as a semi-sentient environment, its waves and currents reacting to the protagonist's emotional states. Animators developed dynamic water simulations that incorporate real-time fluid physics with hand-painted textures to achieve a surreal yet believable effect. Sea spirits, both protective and hostile, emerge from the depths, each animated with unique movement patterns and elemental powers. In one pivotal sequence, a guardian spirit forms from a whirlpool, its tendrils weaving through the air like liquid metal. Ne Zha must outmaneuver it not solely through combat but by predicting its patterns, demonstrating the film's emphasis on strategy, intelligence, and emotional maturity as aspects of heroism. In parallel, Ao Bing must learn to assert his influence despite his incorporeal form. Through subtle manipulation of environmental energies, nudging currents, redirecting spectral forces, and communicating through thought, he begins to play an active role, demonstrating growth and foreshadowing the eventual balance between the two characters. These sequences emphasize the film's exploration of identity and agency, highlighting that strength emerges not only from physical might but from understanding, empathy, and collaboration. The narrative next introduces the celestial forest, a labyrinthine environment that reflects both the internal psychological state of the characters and external narrative stakes. Towering trees with bioluminescent leaves create an otherworldly canopy, while branches and foliage move as if responding to the characters' emotions. The forest's ethereal aesthetic is enhanced by the score, which integrates wind instruments with soft percussive elements, reinforcing both wonder and unease. Here, Ne Zha encounters visions of past failures and moral dilemmas, including memories of past confrontations and moments of hesitation that caused harm. These sequences serve dual purposes: character development and thematic reinforcement. The audience witnesses Ne Zha's internal struggle, grappling with questions of self-worth, destiny, and responsibility, while Ao Bing guides and reassures him from his spiritual plane. Through dialogue and carefully choreographed visual cues, such as overlapping transparent forms and layered lighting effects, the filmmakers create an intimate portrait of friendship and trust developing under adversity. As they proceed, the antagonist emerges in a sequence of escalating tension. This cosmic entity, whose form fluctuates between humanoid and elemental, embodies chaos, disruption, and imbalance. Its attacks are unpredictable, incorporating gravitational distortions, elemental storms, and psychological manipulations, challenging the protagonists on multiple fronts. The animators employed cutting-edge rigging and particle simulation to achieve the dynamic transformations of the antagonist, ensuring that its presence is both imposing and visually fluid. The confrontations are choreographed like a dance, combining martial arts principles with fantastical power displays, emphasizing creativity, adaptability, and moral reasoning over brute strength. The first major battle between the protagonists and the antagonist occurs on the plains of the Shimmering Expanse, a terrain that shifts continuously, reflecting the cosmic instability induced by the antagonist. As Ne Zha and Ao Bing struggle to maintain balance and strategy, the seven-colored lotus begins to resonate, subtly enhancing their abilities. Visual effects highlight the lotus's energy pulsing outward, blending with the protagonist's movements in a symphony of light and motion. The choreography emphasizes synergy. Ne Zha initiates attacks while Ao Bing manipulates environmental forces, reinforcing the narrative motif that their combined efforts are greater than the sum of their individual powers. The battle sequences are intercut with reflective moments, in which the characters' internal dialogue, conveyed through ethereal visual overlays and soft vocalizations, underscores the stakes of their struggle and the moral dimensions of heroism. The emotional climax unfolds when Ao Bing is finally restored to full corporeal form. The resurrection sequence is a breathtaking combination of animation, color design, and sound design. The seven-colored lotus blooms fully, petals expanding and radiating multicolored light that envelopes both characters. The surrounding environment transforms, from barren wastelands and turbulent seas into luminous plains and celestial skies. Each frame is meticulously crafted to convey the interplay of energy, emotion, and narrative resolution. The score swells in harmonic resonance, blending traditional Chinese instruments such as pipa and suona with orchestral crescendos, emphasizing the thematic conclusion of rebirth, renewal, and the restoration of balance. Dialogue during this sequence is sparse but poignant, with Ao Bing expressing relief, gratitude, and newfound confidence, while Ne Zha reflects on the lessons of trust, cooperation, and humility. Following Ao Bing's restoration, the final confrontation with the antagonist occurs across multiple dimensions: physical, spiritual, and cosmic. The filmmakers employ multiplane compositing and dynamic camera perspectives to create a sense of spatial complexity, allowing the audience to perceive the battle simultaneously across interconnected realms. Ne Zha and Ao Bing, now fully synchronized in body and spirit, combine their abilities, demonstrating mastery of both physical skill and strategic thinking. The antagonist is ultimately defeated through the protagonist's synergy, moral integrity, and emotional intelligence, rather than sheer force, reinforcing the film's central themes. The sequence concludes with a cascading display of energy dispersal, cosmic stabilization, and environmental restoration, leaving the world transformed yet balanced. The denouement of the film balances narrative closure with an invitation to future exploration. Ao Bing and Ne Zha, having reconciled their individual identities and strengthened their bond, survey the restored landscape. Visual cues such as lingering light from the lotus, gently flowing water, and residual sparkles of celestial energy suggest both continuity and the enduring impact of their journey. Secondary characters and previously antagonistic spirits are shown in transformed states, indicating resolution and the consequences of the protagonist's ethical choices. Dialogue is sparse, reflective, and emotionally resonant, allowing the audience to internalize the narrative lessons and symbolic messages. From a production perspective, Ne Zha 2 represents a monumental achievement. Over 4,000 artists contributed across more than 100 animation studios, completing thousands of special effects shots, intricate character animation, and complex environmental renderings. The use of advanced rendering techniques, fluid dynamics, particle simulation, and dynamic lighting allowed the filmmakers to achieve a level of visual fidelity rarely seen in animation. Animators also incorporated hand-painted textures and motion capture data to ensure that both characters and environments conveyed a balance of realism and stylized fantasy. Sound design, voice direction, and musical scoring were integrated with the animation pipeline to synchronize emotional beats, environmental cues, and character arcs seamlessly. Commercially, the film's impact was immediate and historic. Grossing over $2.2 billion worldwide, Ne Zha 2 broke records for the highest-grossing animated film in a single market, the first animated film to surpass $2 billion outside Hollywood, and the highest-grossing non-English language animated feature. Critical reception mirrored its commercial triumph, with reviewers praising the animation quality, storytelling depth, cultural fidelity, and emotional resonance. Audience response reflected a broad appreciation for the film's combination of spectacle and intimate character moments, indicating that Ne Zha 2 succeeded in appealing to both casual viewers and culturally invested audiences. Thematically, the film resonates across multiple dimensions. Ao Bing's spiritual entrapment explores identity, autonomy, and self-assertion, while Ne Zha's journey emphasizes responsibility, leadership, and moral courage. Friendship, empathy, and ethical choice emerge as central motifs, reinforced by visual storytelling, dialogue, and musical scoring. The seven-colored lotus serves as a symbol of rebirth, balance, and the cyclical nature of life, connecting narrative, visual, and thematic elements. Mythological references, including dragons, celestial beings, and elemental spirits, are interwoven with Taoist and Buddhist symbolism, creating a culturally rich narrative that is both specific and universal. Visual motifs such as lotus petals, celestial light, and color gradations reinforce emotional and thematic arcs, ensuring that storytelling operates on multiple levels simultaneously. The production of Ne Zha 2 represents a milestone in the evolution of Chinese animation, demonstrating both the technical sophistication and creative ambition of the country's film industry. The project was helmed by Jiaozi Yu Yang, a visionary director and screenwriter who sought to elevate the scope of domestic animation to global standards. The collaboration of Chengdu Coco Cartoon, Beijing Enlight Media, and Beijing Enlight Pictures provided a synergy of resources, technical expertise, and creative talent. From the outset, the production emphasized fidelity to Chinese mythology while incorporating contemporary cinematic techniques, ensuring that the film would appeal to both domestic audiences familiar with the lore and international viewers drawn to epic storytelling and high-quality animation. The reported budget of approximately $80 million allowed the filmmakers to push the boundaries of visual effects, digital modeling, and motion capture technology. Every frame of the film was meticulously crafted to convey depth, texture, and a sense of the fantastical, while still adhering to the aesthetic conventions of Chinese mythological art. Animation in Ne Zha 2 is particularly noteworthy for its seamless integration of traditional artistic motifs with modern 3D techniques. The designers drew inspiration from classical Chinese ink paintings, calligraphy, and historical architecture to inform the look of the environments, character designs, and magical effects. Dragons, in particular, were rendered with a combination of anatomical realism and mythic exaggeration. Their scales shimmered with iridescent patterns, wings and fins moved fluidly through the air and water, and their facial expressions conveyed intelligence, emotion, and personality. Ne Zha's movements, in contrast, combined martial arts precision with fluid acrobatics, creating dynamic sequences that balanced power with elegance. The cauldron ritual scene exemplifies the technical achievements of the production. Fire, ethereal energy, and destructive magical forces were rendered using layered particle simulations, volumetric lighting, and advanced shading techniques to produce a scene of epic scale without sacrificing clarity or emotional resonance. Minor details, such as the interplay of reflections on water surfaces or the subtle distortion of energy fields around characters, were carefully calibrated to enhance immersion. The musical score of Ne Zha 2 is an equally ambitious aspect of the production, composed by Wan Pin Chu, Roy Yang, and Rock Chen. It merges orchestral arrangements recorded in prominent studios with traditional Chinese instrumentation, including the pipa, eru, dizi, and shao, creating a sonic palette that reflects both the grandeur of the mythic world and the intimate emotional journeys of the characters. In key scenes, such as Ne Zha's transformation or Lady Yin's sacrificial act, the score swells with layered choral arrangements and percussive accents, emphasizing both narrative tension and emotional impact. Regional folk elements were also incorporated, drawing from Dong, Tibetan, and Tuvan traditions, providing cultural texture and authenticity to the mythological setting. These musical choices function not only as background enhancement but as narrative devices, signaling shifts in mood, foreshadowing events, or highlighting character development. The integration of minor plot elements and supporting characters further enriches the film's narrative landscape. Townspeople of Chintang Pass, while initially peripheral, provide critical insight into the stakes of the conflict. Their interactions with Ne Zha and Ao Bing reveal the societal implications of supernatural battles and the ripple effects of heroism and destruction. Similarly, minor immortals and mystical guardians encountered during the journey to Yusu Palace act as both obstacles and guides, reinforcing the film's exploration of morality, loyalty, and spiritual growth. Even characters who appear briefly, such as soldiers of the celestial sect or secondary dragons, are rendered with narrative purpose, contributing to world building and reinforcing the moral complexity of the story. These layered character interactions ensure that every element of the film, no matter how small, contributes meaningfully to the overall thematic and emotional experience. Culturally, Ne Zha 2 represents a turning point in the global perception of Chinese animation. Domestically, the film resonated profoundly with audiences, combining familiar mythological figures with modern narrative sensibilities, high-stakes action, and moral depth. Internationally, it demonstrated that Chinese studios can produce films on par with global animation giants, blending universal storytelling elements with culturally specific motifs. The film's release strategy, timed with the Lunar New Year holiday, maximized audience engagement, while international distribution, including English dubbing and streaming availability, extended its reach and influence. Critics praised the film's ability to balance spectacle with substance, lauding its combination of visual sophistication, emotional depth, and ethical storytelling. Beyond entertainment, the film's cultural significance is multifaceted. It reinvigorates interest in Chinese mythology, presenting characters and stories in a format accessible to younger generations and global audiences alike. By emphasizing moral choice, identity, and reconciliation, the film connects mythological narratives to contemporary social and ethical considerations. Its portrayal of unity across differences, dragons, humans, and demons working together, reflects broader cultural ideals of harmony and cooperation, resonating with both domestic and international audiences. Moreover, the commercial and critical success of Ne Zha 2 has paved the way for future Guoman films, demonstrating that culturally grounded stories can achieve both artistic and financial success on a global scale. As Ne Zha and Ao Bing advance through their journey, the narrative introduces a range of secondary characters who enrich the story both emotionally and thematically. Among these is Little Lotus, a spirit child born from the residual energy of the seven-colored precious lotus, who appears intermittently to guide and provoke the protagonists. Little Lotus provides a combination of comic relief and narrative guidance. Animated with expressive, fluid movements and a slightly exaggerated style compared to the main characters, Little Lotus embodies innocence, curiosity, and the capricious nature of divine energy. Its interactions with Ne Zha are playful, often interrupting serious discussions with witty remarks, slapstick moments, or exaggerated facial expressions. These sequences prevent the story from becoming relentlessly epic, giving audiences moments of levity and emotional breathing space while still contributing to thematic resonance about the unpredictability of life and the presence of guidance in unexpected forms. Another secondary character is the Jade Envoy, a celestial messenger tasked with overseeing the balance of mortal and divine energies. Unlike Little Lotus, the Jade Envoy represents authority, structure, and occasionally tension, providing moral challenges to the protagonists. Its appearance is imposing yet elegant, with robes rendered in flowing digital silk textures that respond to both environmental forces and emotional cues. During a critical scene in the Celestial Court, the Jade Envoy tests Ne Zha and Ao Bing, questioning their motivations, courage, and understanding of duty. This sequence underscores the narrative's exploration of ethical decision-making. Even those with great power must temper it with wisdom and empathy. Dialogue is delivered in measured, formal tones, contrasting with Ne Zha's impulsive energy and Ao Bing's cautious, reflective demeanor. Animators highlight this contrast through subtle posture, eye movement, and gestural language, emphasizing the characters' internal states and interpersonal dynamics. Humor is carefully interwoven throughout the story to maintain emotional balance. For example, Ao Bing's initial struggle with invisibility leads to humorous misunderstandings, such as Ne Zha misinterpreting floating objects as magical attacks or Ao Bing accidentally influencing the environment in ways that create slapstick chaos. These moments, while playful, are never purely frivolous. They reinforce the film's central motif that collaboration requires patience, trust, and adaptability. Additionally, comedic timing is enhanced by visual exaggeration, sound effects, and carefully constructed editing rhythms, demonstrating the filmmaker's attention to pacing and audience engagement. Cultural symbolism permeates the film's design, grounding the narrative in Chinese mythology while providing visual and thematic depth. Dragons, for instance, appear both as antagonists and allies, each designed with meticulous attention to traditional artistic forms and naturalistic motion. The dragon sequences involve complex rigging, scale modeling, and fluid dynamics, capturing the majesty and elemental power associated with these mythological creatures. Colors are employed symbolically. Reds and golds signify courage, honor, and divine presence. Blues and greens evoke tranquility, reflection, and spiritual insight, and purples suggest transformation, mysticism, and balance. Lotus imagery recurs throughout, both literally in the resurrection sequences and metaphorically in visual motifs such as cloud patterns, light halos, and ethereal reflections. Each visual choice is deliberate, reinforcing narrative arcs and character development while connecting viewers to centuries of mythological and artistic tradition. Dialogue in Ne Zha 2 is carefully crafted to convey both character development and thematic depth. In one particularly poignant scene, Bing reflects on his spiritual entrapment: "I can see, I can think, but I cannot act. How can I exist if I cannot choose?" This line, simple yet profound, encapsulates the tension between power and agency, a central theme of the film. Ne Zha responds not with solutions, but with encouragement, demonstrating empathy: "You are more than your body. We will find a way together." Such exchanges, often brief, carry significant emotional weight, highlighting the importance of dialogue in conveying ethical, psychological, and relational dynamics within the narrative. The film's box office impact reflects its narrative ambition and cultural resonance. In China, the opening weekend alone generated approximately $300 million, quickly surpassing previous records for animated features. By the end of the first month, total domestic earnings exceeded $1.2 billion, a testament to both the film's technical quality and its deep cultural connection with audiences. Internationally, the film grossed nearly $1 billion, with strong performance in the United States, Japan, South Korea, and Southeast Asia. This global reception reflects the universality of its themes: friendship, identity, sacrifice, and the moral complexity of power. Critics widely praised the film for its visual innovation, emotional depth, and cultural authenticity, noting its success in appealing to both audiences unfamiliar with Chinese mythology and those deeply versed in its traditions. Critical reception often highlighted the film's skillful integration of multiple narrative layers. The main plot, rebuilding Bing's body and confronting the antagonist, is complemented by rich secondary storylines, including Little Lotus Guidance, the Jade Envoy's ethical tests, and subtle character subplots that explore growth, reconciliation, and self-acceptance. Reviewers noted that the film avoids narrative clutter through careful pacing, visual clarity, and strategic emphasis on emotional beats. The combination of visual spectacle, humor, and reflective moments ensures that the audience remains engaged without feeling overwhelmed, a notable achievement given the complexity of the plot and the density of mythological references. Production insights reveal the immense effort behind these achievements. Over 4,000 animators and technicians collaborated across more than 100 studios. Rendering complex effects such as water simulations, lotus energy dispersals, and dragon movements required both advanced software tools and meticulous handcrafted adjustments. For example, water particles in the abyssal sea sequence were simulated with computational fluid dynamics, then adjusted manually to create artistic, visually pleasing forms that conveyed both realism and mythic abstraction. Similarly, lighting effects in the celestial court sequences were designed to interact with character motion and narrative emphasis, ensuring that visual cues reinforce thematic content. The soundtrack contributes another layer of storytelling depth. Composers Wan Pin Chu, Rui Yang, and Rock Chen combined traditional Chinese instruments with orchestral arrangements recorded internationally. Specific leitmotifs are associated with characters and themes. A gentle, plucked pipa melody signals Bing's spiritual perspective, swelling orchestral chords highlight Ne Zha's courage and determination, and harmonically complex motifs underscore moments of moral tension, choice, and transformation. Sound design, from subtle environmental cues to the explosive audio of battles, is meticulously synchronized with visual effects, enhancing immersion and reinforcing narrative emphasis. In conclusion, this segment of Ne Zha 2 demonstrates the filmmaker's mastery in combining narrative depth, mythological richness, visual innovation, humor, and emotional resonance. Secondary characters, dialogue, humor, and cultural symbolism are not ancillary but integral to the storytelling, ensuring that the film operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Box office success and critical acclaim reflect the effectiveness of this holistic approach, demonstrating that a deeply rooted cultural narrative can achieve universal appeal when executed with skill, ambition, and creative vision. The narrative of Ne Zha 2 unfolds with a cinematic intensity that immediately immerses the audience in a universe where mythology, morality, and spectacle converge. Following the catastrophic events of the previous saga, Ne Zha's body lies destroyed, yet his spirit endures. Likewise, Ao Bing, the reincarnation of the spirit pearl, has perished physically, leaving only his essence. Tai Zhenren, their mystical mentor, intervenes with the seven-colored sacred lotus, a divine artifact whose luminescent petals shimmer with power, weaving together their souls into a single corporeal form. This reconstruction, while miraculous, is precarious. The shared body is unstable, vulnerable, and reflective of the inner duality of its inhabitants. From the very first moments of the film, the audience is confronted with questions that transcend mere plot. What defines identity? Can beings of opposing natures coexist harmoniously? How do moral choice and personal growth emerge from the crucible of adversity? Ne Zha awakens in this new form with the same fiery temperament that defined him in life, yet now tempered by the physical and spiritual proximity of Ao Bing. Their early interactions are fraught with tension. Ne Zha's impulsiveness manifests as sudden bursts of flame that sear through the environment, scattering birds and shattering stone, while Ao Bing's influence tempers these outbursts with a calming aura of flowing, aquamarine light, evoking the serenity and depth of the oceans he represents. This interplay between fire and water becomes a recurring motif, a visual metaphor for the constant negotiation between chaos and order, between instinct and moral reasoning. Each movement, each surge of magical energy, carries symbolic weight. Fire burns away prejudice and ignorance, while water tempers recklessness and fosters reflection. The first act of the story also introduces the broader socio-political tensions of the world. The celestial hierarchy, embodied by Master Wuyang and the Chan sect, stands as a monument to institutional authority. Their palaces, suspended amidst the clouds and adorned with intricate jade motifs, shimmer with ritualistic grandeur. Yet beneath this surface of divine order lies ambition, manipulation, and the suppression of the other. Wuyang's trials, ostensibly designed to test Ne Zha's virtue, are revealed to be instruments of control, designed to maintain a cosmic hierarchy that privileges the immortals at the expense of dragons and demons. Here, the narrative explores the ethical implications of power. Authority alone does not confer morality, and systems built on fear and prejudice can perpetuate suffering even under the guise of righteousness. Meanwhile, Ao Guang, the Dragon King of the East Sea, is driven by grief and the desire for vengeance following the perceived death of his son. His initial response, summoning torrents, causing storms, and laying waste to villages, is both literal and symbolic. It represents the destructive potential of unprocessed grief and the dangers of letting personal loss dictate moral action. His movements, vast and serpentine, dominate the cinematic frame, emphasizing the grandeur and majesty of dragons as mythic beings. Yet his fury is not absolute. The narrative carefully humanizes him, revealing moments of doubt, vulnerability, and the weight of paternal responsibility. This complexity transforms Ao Guang from a stereotypical villain into a figure whose ethical ambiguity mirrors the real-world tensions between justice and revenge. The film's fight sequences are not merely action spectacles, they are choreographed extensions of character psychology and thematic resonance. In one pivotal confrontation, Ne Zha confronts the celestial guard sent by the Chan sect. The scene begins with Ne Zha erupting into a pillar of fire, his aura incandescent and chaotic, while Ao Bing's calming influence radiates from his shared body in streams of flowing blue light. As Ne Zha strikes, the environment itself reacts, stone shatters, water pools ripple, and the sky fractures with arcs of magical energy. Each elemental effect mirrors the internal struggle of the protagonists, every destructive burst tempered by the necessity of restraint. The choreography communicates not only physical dominance but the ethical tension between action and consequence, reflecting the central philosophical motifs of balance, duality, and moral agency. Beyond the protagonists, the film richly develops supporting characters to enhance both narrative depth and symbolic meaning. Lady Yin, Ne Zha's mother, embodies unconditional maternal compassion. Her presence grounds the story, reminding the audience that even mythic conflicts impact human lives. In scenes where she confronts danger to protect Ne Zha, her gestures and expressions carry immense emotional weight, framing the cosmic battles as ultimately human stories of care, sacrifice, and love. Li Jing, Ne Zha's father, embodies the challenges of governance and ethical responsibility. His actions demonstrate that leadership is fraught with moral dilemmas, requiring difficult choices that weigh community welfare against personal attachment. Together, the parental figures anchor the narrative in relatability, humanizing a world otherwise populated by supernatural forces. Dragons and demons serve as another layer of symbolic richness. Once cast as antagonists in mythology, in Ne Zha too they are rendered sympathetically, emphasizing historical oppression, marginalization, and the moral worth inherent in action rather than lineage. In one scene, a collective of dragons, shimmering with iridescent scales and deep-sea tones, rises against a divine order that has persecuted them for centuries. Their struggle is not only physical but ideological. They fight for dignity, justice, and recognition. The audience is encouraged to reconsider preconceived notions of villainy, reflecting broader philosophical questions about prejudice, identity, and ethical judgment. Tai Jinren, the immortal mentor, operates as a narrative and symbolic bridge between realms, philosophies, and moral codes. His mastery over magical artifacts like the seven-colored sacred lotus enables him to perform acts of resurrection and transformation, yet his role extends beyond mere magic. He embodies guidance, ethical wisdom, and the belief that growth arises from both challenge and mentorship. His interventions are always measured, even miraculous acts like reconstructing Ne Zha's body are framed with limitations and consequences, underscoring the film's recurring motif that power, however divine, must be exercised with moral consideration. As the story reaches its climactic battles, all narrative, symbolic, and thematic threads converge. Ne Zha and Ao Bing, now fully reconciled within their shared form, confront both the celestial hierarchy and the physical threats it unleashes. The visual narrative crescendos, torrents of fire and water clash across shattered landscapes, dragons coil around clouds, and lotus petals swirl amidst cascading magical energy. Each sequence is meticulously designed to serve dual purposes, thrilling spectacle and philosophical illustration. The choreography emphasizes the protagonist's internal growth, their ability to harmonize opposing traits, exercise ethical judgment, and confront both personal and societal injustice. Every strike, every magical surge, every act of defense carries metaphorical weight. Fire destroys prejudice, water tempers impulsivity, and the lotus signifies renewal and moral rebirth. The resolution of the film does not adhere to simple moral binaries. While Ne Zha and Ao Bing emerge victorious, the narrative emphasizes that balance and justice require ongoing vigilance. The celestial hierarchy is confronted, yet the story implies that systemic reform is never complete, that prejudice and corruption are persistent challenges. Dragons and humans achieve a fragile reconciliation, and the protagonist's shared body now symbolizes the integration of duality, reflecting Taoist principles and the universal human task of harmonizing conflicting aspects of self and society. Ne Zha too concludes not with a tidy moral statement, but with reflective ambiguity. Triumph is achieved through cooperation, empathy, and moral discernment, yet the complexities of authority, prejudice, and identity remain. The film's layered symbolism, demon orb, spirit pearl, lotus, fire and water, dragons, celestial artifacts, ensures that its narrative resonates on multiple levels, from visceral excitement to philosophical meditation. Audiences are left not only entertained but invited to consider the deeper implications of choice, morality, and the transformative power of reconciliation and empathy. The narrative of Ne Zha too unfolds with a cinematic intensity that immediately immerses the audience in a universe where mythology, morality, and spectacle converge. Following the catastrophic events of the previous saga, Ne Zha's body lies destroyed, yet his spirit endures. Likewise, Ao Bing, the reincarnation of the spirit pearl, has perished physically, leaving only his essence. Tai Jinren, their mystical mentor, intervenes with the seven-colored sacred lotus, a divine artifact whose luminescent petals shimmer with power, weaving together their souls into a single corporeal form. This reconstruction, while miraculous, is precarious. The shared body is unstable, vulnerable, and reflective of the inner duality of its inhabitants. From the very first moments of the film, the audience is confronted with questions that transcend mere plot. What defines identity? Can beings of opposing natures coexist harmoniously? How do moral choice and personal growth emerge from the crucible of adversity? Ne Zha awakens in this new form with the same fiery temperament that defined him in life, yet now tempered by the physical and spiritual proximity of Ao Bing. Their early interactions are fraught with tension. Ne Zha's impulsiveness manifests as sudden bursts of flame that sear through the environment, scattering birds and shattering stone, while Ao Bing's influence tempers these outbursts with a calming aura of flowing, aquamarine light, evoking the serenity and depth of the oceans he represents. This interplay between fire and water becomes a recurring motif, a visual metaphor for the constant negotiation between chaos and order, between instinct and moral reasoning. Each movement, each surge of magical energy, carries symbolic weight. Fire burns away prejudice and ignorance, while water tempers recklessness and fosters reflection. The first act of the story also introduces the broader socio-political tensions of the world. The celestial hierarchy, embodied by Master Wu Yang and the Chan sect, stands as a monument to institutional authority. Their palaces, suspended amidst the clouds and adorned with intricate jade motifs, shimmer with ritualistic grandeur. Yet beneath this surface of divine order lies ambition, manipulation, and the suppression of the other. Wu Yang's trials, ostensibly designed to test Ne Zha's virtue, are revealed to be instruments of control, designed to maintain a cosmic hierarchy that privileges the immortals at the expense of dragons and demons. Here, the narrative explores the ethical implications of power. Authority alone does not confer morality,